in Delhi, Bombay, you are walking in a street, you are walking in a fashion street, you are purchasing clothes, you are purchasing whatever. You just gone out, you gone out to the beach, right? Imagine if there were no cars. Imagine if you could walk a street and there were no cars. Imagine if there were not people who had parked on the roads. Imagine if there all of those big boxes were not there. So more people could walk, more people could walk on the footpath, more two-wheelers could go through, more public transport could go through, right? Imagine how free the city would be. Imagine there would be so much less smoke, right? And I speak this from experience, like my experience of like people parking right on the, like I live in Delhi, people park right on the road, they park right on the road, and that is so frustrating. A 3-lane road becomes a 1-lane road, and it just kills the fun of driving, it just kills the fun of riding a bicycle. Like even if you're walking, it kills the fun of walking. You cannot walk on the road, you cannot walk on the footpath. There are hawkers on the footpath, the pedestrians are walking on the road, it becomes so dangerous. So sorry, today's my first article that I'm going to discuss today is, should cars be banned from cities? That's the first one that we're going to read today. It's a 3-year-old article from The Guardian. I think we should do it. I think people are already imagining cities, big cities like New York, Amsterdam. Some cities have already become car free, and people are already imagining what big cities would look like car free. I think they would look so much more beautiful. The commute would become so much more convenient, and the life would thrive, culture would thrive so much more, as compared to like when there are like these big boxes containing two people, sometimes one people. I still understand, yeah, if people are like a family traveling in a car, it's okay. People from some village doing some village work in far hinterlands where there is not much of a traffic problem, or there are not as many cars, I understand. But in cities, it's just so cluttered, it is just so such an unpleasant experience to have. Like, and imagine the summers, imagine like the rainy season, winters are also now smoky. So yeah, that's the first article that we'll read. Second article that we'll read is why hair and makeup is Bollywood's most secure career today. Like apparently hair and makeup is the most secure job right now or at on in the Hindi film industry in Bollywood, and it pays more than the person. It pays more to do that hair and makeup as compared to write a script. So what are the politics of that? What is right or wrong there? We'll try to read that. And if energy, then I still have some energy, then we'll read about how India's schools are embracing AI. I've been reading about like how school में AI आ गया है, teachers AI use कर रहे हैं, students AI use कर रहे हैं, तो उसके क्या pitfalls हैं, कुछ pitfalls हैं भी, उसको किस तरीके से लाना चाहिए, उसके साथ क्या guidelines होनी चाहिए एक average classroom में, क्या समझ होनी चाहिए कि AI जो information हमेशा थ्रो करता है वो सही नहीं होती है, क्या वो टेम्परामेंट बिल्ड करना ज़रूरी है, और अगर यूज़ करना, यूज़ तो होगा ही, देखो एक टेक्नोलॉजी आती है वो यूज़ होती है, पर उसको किस तरीके से यूज़ करें कि इट जस्ट एनहेंसेस द माइंड ऑफ अ स्टूडेंट, इट जस्ट एनहेंसेस द क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग ऑफ द स्टूडेंट, as compared to relying for all answers on AI and like thinking like that. So that's the third article that we'll read today. Welcome to 3 News Daily. I am Varun, and let's just start with the first article. Should cars be banned from cities? There has been justified excitement around the idea of rewilding over the past few years. Rewilding, जहाँ जहाँ से भी पेड़ पौधे ग्रीनरी हटा दी थी वहाँ पे उनको rewild किया जाए. With projects popping up all over the UK that aim to restore wildlife and encourage regenerative farming practices. Wildlife restore होगी और regenerative farming practices होनी चाहिए. This is UK, of course. Guardian is the UK based media platform, so they're talking about there. We'll try to contextualize it as much as possible for where we live, which is India. It is now generally accepted that monoculture, largely brought on by the expansion of farmland, is bad for our countryside. But what about our cities? Like natural ecosystems, cities also used to be complex and diverse places that hosted a whole range of different activities. If you see old street photos, there are people, there are stalls, there are people walking, there are all different sorts of things. There is a public sphere where somebody is singing or dancing or performing something. There are melas that are going on somewhere, and an occasional horse truck somewhere. But what is happening now? like this article says, okay, this is written by Thalia, Verkade, and Marco, right? So they have written this article for the Guardian. Yeah, sorry. Like natural ecosystems, cities also used to be complex and diverse places that hosted a whole range of different activities. Our streets were public spaces used for many purposes: work, trade, play, socializing, and transportation. Not only transportation, all of these things used to happen. Rebecca Solnit describes our relationship to our city perfectly in her book Wanderlust. The word citizen has to do with cities, and the ideal city is organized around citizenship. It is organized around people, not their cars, around participation in public life. Sorry, I would quote her line again. The word citizen has to do with cities, and the ideal city is organized around citizenship, around participation in public life. And that is how it once was. But just as swathes of our countryside were repurposed for farming, over the past century, our city streets have been optimized for one goal. All cities have been optimized for one goal: to move people around as quickly as possible, unhindered by anyone using public space for other purposes. This has its benefits. Who wouldn't argue that it is useful to be able to get from one side of a city to another quickly and efficiently? But they have come at a cost. Our shared urban environment, which used to be for everyone, is by and large dominated by moving and parked cars. That's my whole problem. Urban environment is for everyone. It is for pedestrians. It is for people who are just on this on they just want to use the space for whatever reason, unless and until it is not public nuisance. The city spaces can be used for many things apart from just transport, apart from just parking of cars. Even if they were moving cars, I would still understand, but parked cars, why why is there a parked car on a public road for which I pay tax, for which many others pay tax जिनकी कार नहीं है वो? But just as swathes of our countryside were repurposed for farming, over the past century, our city streets have been optimized for one goal: to move people around as quickly as possible, unhindered by anyone using public space for other purposes. This has its benefits. Who wouldn't argue that it is useful to be able to get from one side of a city to another quickly and efficiently? But they have come at a cost. Our shared urban environment, which used to be for everyone, is by and large dominated by moving and parked cars. Again, this article. Oh, why does this happen? 1 second, guys. Just a second. Yeah. So sorry. Just a second. My laptop is freezing for some reason. One second. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. Your feed will resume shortly. Ding 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 ding. Ding ding ding. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. Ding ding ding. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. All right, sorry, my bad. Resumed. Ding 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 ding. Ding ding ding. Ding ding ding. Ding 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 ding. Okay, resume. Where we live, for example, the authors write, in the Netherlands, there are almost as many parking spaces as people. If you were to put all these spaces together, they would take up more room than the total surface area of Amsterdam. We'll read that line again. Where we live, the authors write, in the Netherlands, there are almost as many parking spaces as people. If you were to put all these spaces together, they would take up more room than the total surface area of Amsterdam. Right? So imagine in Delhi, if you just add up the area of like the number of cars that are just parked in like open spaces, that area would, I'm definitely sure, add up to a huge city, or even a state. Who knows, that much area is just covered with these boxes, right? Most are on public land, and that is my main problem. You park in your own garage, you park in the underground parkings, you park in common public parking lots, it's fine. But most, as in the Netherlands and in India, more so in India, I'm assuming, most are parked on public land, but and this is specifically for cities, guys, cluttered cities where in one apartment there are four houses, in each house there are four members, and for each of those four members there are four cars, or even like three cars. That is what I'm talking about. Where will kids play cricket? Where will these kids will just enjoy life without thinking about, नहीं उस गुप्ता जी के अंकल का कांच फोड़ दिया, या वो कर दिया, या कहीं किसी को चलना है, किसी कोई छोटे बच्चे को स्केटिंग करनी है, किसी को बस बिबॉइंग करना है, कुछ भी करना है, वो स्पेसेस बची कहाँ हैं? Most are on public land but cannot be used by the public in any other way. You may be surprised to hear this, since the Netherlands is widely known as the cycling capital of the world. Cycling capital of the world में ये problem है. अब इंडिया तो motor accidents capital of the world भी हो सकता है, like the way things are around here, unfortunately. And yes, we have cycling lanes and bicycle parking too, but these still reduce our streets to just one purpose: transportation. I want to open this debate with anybody who wants to come with me on live and talk about this. Transportation. क्या streets की एक ही, do streets serve only one purpose, that is transportation? In short, we have allowed our cities to become monocultures. Only one culture can survive. If transportation culture is there, the transportation ही survive करेगा. This development wasn't inevitable. When cars first started to flood cities in the US from 1920s onwards, and in the Europe from 1950s, I'm assuming in India when Maruti came, 80s, 70s, 80s, public opinion dictated that they should adapt to the existing system. So pedestrians took precedence. Pedestrians took precedent. जो चल रहा है वहाँ पे वो प्रेसिडेंट होना चाहिए ना, तब उस टाइम पे उसने प्रेसिडेंस लिया था, मतलब वो ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट था. But as Peter Norton explores in his book Fighting Traffic, within the span of a single decade, in 10 years, the idea took hold that the city should adapt to the car. Traders were no longer allowed to offer their wares in the street. मेरा दुकान है भाई, मैंने चार चीज़ें बाहर लगा रखी हैं, ठीक है, वहाँ से कोई चल के जा रहा है, वो देखेगा वो चार चीज़ें ना, अब मुझे अंदर रखना है क्योंकि वहाँ पे एक हुंडई खड़ी हो जाएगी. Traders were no longer allowed to offer their wares in the street, only in dedicated regulated markets. Children stopped playing outside and had to be taught from an early age to watch out for motorists rather than motorists keeping an eye out for them. कोई बच्चा बाहर खेल रहा है, कोई बच्चा बाहर चल रहा है, कोई बुढ़ा इंसान बाहर चल रहा है. पहले कार सोचती थी कि यार ये चल रहे हैं, मुझे अलग से निकलना है. अब हमें बताया जाता है कि भाई तुम ध्यान से चलो, कोई उड़ा लेगा तुम्हें. क्यों उड़ाएगा भाई? Okay. Children stopped playing outside and had to be taught from an early age. Sorry, I sound a little like irritated today because this is a big pain point. Like this, I think this is a very huge problem. This is a cultural issue, like a major, huge cultural issue in a city like Delhi. Yaar, it's so hot in winter. In the summers, it's so hot, and there are thousands of cars on the street for no reason at all. For like, it could be half those cars because many of those cars have one or two people inside it. Anyway, children stopped playing outside and had to be taught from an early age to watch out for motorists rather than motorists keeping an eye out for them. Pedestrians were consigned to the pavement. The shift towards how our cities operate today has begun. Look at your street. What do you see? Probably a pipeline for fast and free-flowing car traffic. Maybe a cycle lane, balls, no cycle lanes. Maybe a cycle lane that supports another kind of admittedly more environment-friendly traffic. Parking spaces, possibly bike hangars, not a place for neighbors to congregate, children to play together, not a place for citizenship. Apart from public parks, there are lots of public parks, I agree. But public parks are not the only places where you would want to walk. I would want to walk to my grocery store. I would want to walk towards my market where they sell fruits and vegetables. I would want to walk for all small chores that I need, small like medical shop, anywhere, like the small distances that I want to cover, I would want to cover through, and these are also spaces that I would want. and like all these beautiful shops that are there, उनके आगे कार लगी हुई है. Yeah, sorry, maybe a cycle lane that supports another kind. Yeah, parking, possibly bike hangars, not a place for citizens to congregate, children to play together, not a place for citizenship. Is there another way? Well, some cities are starting to rewild. Barcelona is democratizing its public space to include urban patios and parks. What are patios? Paved outdoor area adjoining a house. थोड़े के थोड़ा सा आगे और pave कर दिया, paved outdoor है, लोग चल रहे हैं, कुछ हो रहा है वहाँ पे, you know. So वो बार्सिलोना में हो रहा है. और parks reclaiming its streets from traffic. Cars will still be allowed, but they will constitute just one use of public space and not the main reason for its existence. Yeah. In the same spirit, Groningen in the Netherlands, known for its progressive steps to reclaim streets for bikes, recently adopted a set of guidelines that state that moving about is just one thing that a street should facilitate, as well as, for example, better health, clean air, and awareness of cultural history. Imagine some painted walls, you know, history of the culture of the place, or the city's ability to adapt to the climate emergency. Of course, guess what reduces it? Less cars. Paris, meanwhile, has a 15-minute city plan that aims to create self-sufficient communities where everything you need is within a 15-minute cycle, walk, or cycle. Exactly. If everything you need in most cities is within that 15-minute walk or cycle, then why do you need to take out your big dabba and take it? Right? If anybody is watching, drop some comments. I want to know if I'm the only one who is like bothered so much by it, you know, or if there are other people as well, you know, who are super bothered by it. If you're watching right now, please drop a comment. I would love for you to drop a comment right now. Thank you. Yeah, moving on. Is that enough though? People are so used to making way for traffic. Perhaps an even more radical change is needed in order to shake us out of that mindset. What would happen? What would happen if we banned cars from cities altogether? What would happen? Parts of some cities have already done this with great success, albeit temporarily, on car-free days for marathons or to host street parties for the Queen's Jubilee. Wow, that is in their context. In our context, I think odd even happened in Delhi, where on odd days odd numbered cars came out, on even days even numbered cars came out. I wonder what happened to that policy. That was a good step in the right direction according to me. In some spaces there have been permanent changes. For example, in Utrecht, an entire canal that had been filled in to make space for motorways in the 1970s was turned back into the canal in 2020 to the delight of local residents. And an alderman at the time, Elko Ehrenberg, said, now that the canal is back, it provides a beautiful connection. Wow, a canal is back. Usko motor chalane ke liye hata diya tha, ab wapas aa gaya. To a plethora of important urban functions about, among other things, the station, a pop stage, theatre, and greenery have found their place at the water. So many things can happen, like a pop stage, theatre, greenery, people walking, people thinking, people writing, people reading, people playing, people talking. So much can be done with an urban space and how people can intermix with each other. And I'm sure it can be adapted for India also, where there is so much social diversity, so much intermingling is possible, so many small educational apprenticeships can also happen, you know, when these kinds of like public space collaboration is allowed to happen between people from different classes and castes in a country like India. And then there are the cities that have always been car-free, such as Venice. Wow, Venice is car-free, one of the most beautiful and beloved places in the world. With the rising cost of petrol, our growing awareness of the damage that cars inflict on our environment, and increased parking costs and concession charges, surely now is the time to find a better way, one that allows us to restore our cities to the social hubs they once were, to reverse the scourge of monoculture. Imagine looking out of your window, but instead of rows of parked cars and lanes of traffic, you see a communal vegetable garden. a communal vegetable garden. It's hard to even think, but it's so much. It is. I think it's highly possible. A shared barbecue, a play area for children, wildflowers to attract insects, different forms of transportation. Sure, maybe a couple of electric cars, but with mobility no longer taking precedence, the natural ecosystem of a city restored. I know it is easier said than done, but I really feel that certain steps need to be taken in this direction to make our public spaces car free. When there is one person traveling in a big box, maybe not allow it or discourage it in some ways. When supremely populated places like big markets, if cars are not there, imagine you're walking, everybody is walking, everybody has shopping bags in their hands. There are other ways in which their load can be carried, and the life can be made easier without cars. So if some steps are taken in that direction, I really do feel that our cities will be much better and happier for everyone who live in these cities. So that is the first one. All right, I hope you're having fun. If you're having fun, subscribe to the podcast. If you have reached till here, subscribe to the podcast. Support me. Support me through commenting. Support me by subscribing. Support me by pushing that notification button. Support me by sharing it among friends of yours who you feel would benefit from this, from me reading news and trying to make sense of it, trying to make sense of matters which are important uh, about their surroundings, about as Indian citizens, as global citizens, and I'll be grateful to you. All right, this is an article in the Indian Express. It's written by Devansh Sharma. It talks about hair and makeup is Bollywood's most secure career today. So why is it so? Let's just read up. Ace filmmaker Karan Johar doesn't want his 8-year-old kids Yash and Ruhi to follow in his footsteps or even become actors. He would rather they become hair and makeup artists, given the fee that they're commanding in the Hindi film industry. While an actor certainly earns more, in the current ecosystem, it's not far fetched to claim that a hair and makeup artist has the most secure, lucrative job on a film set. On a film set, who has the most secure and lucrative job? A hair and makeup artist. Let's see. Let's see. I mean, it's understandable, like in like a cosmetic industry like the Hindi film industry right now, like Bollywood right now, where looks mean everything, and they have meant everything for so long, in mainstream Hindi cinema, that and hair and makeup are a huge part of looks. So how did it become so big, and what does it entail? First of all, let's see what Devansh has to say. Even if one keeps aside the earnings from their services for other shoots and events, and focus solely on a film set, a hairstylist or makeup artist today can earn upwards of rupees 1 lakh per day. Say for film set पे अगर वो 20 दिन है तो 20 लाख रुपए तक वो कमा सकते हैं और earn upwards of 1 lakh. So this is like the mid level. I'm assuming it can go higher and higher depending on किसका HMU तुम कर रहे हो. Over and above that, producers also bear the cost of travel and accommodation of the hair and makeup teams in the case of outdoor shoots. These often include first class travel for not only the artists but also their assistants, since they prefer to be in the stars' close proximity in the wee hours of the day, right? If the pickup of the cone wants to get HMU done at 3 a.m. in the night on a film set to go live or to do something, then the HMU artist must be nearby, right? And this holds true for all the stars, I'm assuming. Add to that the scheduling and overtime costs, since the HMU department often starts hours before the rest of the crew does. So all of that cost as well. So depending on additional costs, the hair and makeup of a singular star, one star, can go up to 2 lakh rupees. Yeah, then you're making a film. It's funny. You're making a film and your hair HMU budget is 2 lakh per artist for one day. That's insane, man. While I don't disagree that hair and makeup is a very important part of the industry, is it that important? Is the quality of is as much money or half the money spent on like writing the film, thinking about new ideas? I don't know. Let's see. A film with two lead stars and other supporting actors can thus cost up to rupees 6 lakh for hair and makeup alone. The shoot of a film goes up to 40-60 days, at least at the least these days, which add up to rupees 2.4 to 3.6 crore for hair and makeup department alone. And if it's a bigger film shot over a longer period of time and also shot outdoors, the total HMU budget can go up to 8 to 10 crore. In comparison, on an average, a screenwriter is paid rupees 4 lakh for story, screenplay and dialogues each. 4 लाख की स्टोरी आती है, 4 लाख का स्क्रीन प्ले आता है, 4 लाख का डायलॉग आता है, 12 लाख में स्क्रिप्ट बनती है और 3.5 करोड़ का मेकअप होता है. ये तो बहुत बड़ा मिसमैच है, ये तो बहुत बड़ा मिसमैच है. फिर ज़्यादा अच्छा क्या होगा, तुम ये सोच लो. ज़्यादा अच्छा हेयर एंड मेकअप होगा या ज़्यादा अच्छी स्क्रिप्ट होगी? ज़्यादा मज़ा तुम्हें पिक्चर देखने में आएगा या तो ज़्यादा मज़ा तुम्हें हेयर एंड मेकअप देखने में आएगा? While that adds up to rupees 12 lakh per film, one must take into account how the writer's job starts months or even years before the film goes on floors. Meanwhile, HMU artist's job involved prep work of barely a few days at best. The travesty is that writers don't even get paid all their tranches, let alone on time. सारे tranches मतलब ट्रांच में मिलता है उनको, और वो सारे मिलते भी नहीं हैं apparently, according to this guy who has written this article. How makeup dadas were replaced by HMU. The creme la creme of the industry, makeup artists Mickey Contractor and Namrata Soni and hairstylist Alim Hakim charge in the above range, but it's no longer an essential prerequisite to have decades of experience. A hairstylist or makeup artist 5 or 10 years into the industry can also reach there on certain projects. All they need is skill, but moreover trust of the star they are loyal or attached to. Gone are the days of makeup dadas and hair didis. Back in the 90s, either the stars had the same professionals for years, or they used to avail the services of those made available for all actors on set by the producer. They were thorough professionals, but they weren't brands, says Anis Mas, the renowned hairstylist who has worked with A-listers like Priyanka Chopra. We have come a long way since then. In the age of social media, a film look isn't just reserved for the film, but is plastered all across the audience's smartphone for posterity. Correct. He also, one photo will remain forever. Earlier, not so much the case. People will see the film, there's going to be a poster, there's going to be a photo in a Stardust magazine, then it's done. Now, it's everywhere, forever, everything comes back, everything becomes relevant again, everything gets viral. He also attributes this shift from faceless but loyal hair and makeup professionals to brands to the ability of the latter to keep up with the times. When I started out 30 years ago, there was barely anything we could work with. A lot of makeup products had to be imported. I remember L'Oreal was the first brand to step into the Indian market later, and others followed. We all learned on the job, and those who couldn't are no longer around today. The role of new age star and airport looks. What does airport looks? A new age star का क्या मतलब होता है और उससे HMU को कैसे benefit होता है? The evolution in the hair and makeup industry has also coincided with the rise of the new age star. Now, who is this person? The star that no longer banks on inaccessibility to guard their stardom. वो inaccessible नहीं है, वो छुप नहीं रहा है, वो interview वो बिल्कुल mysterious नहीं है. Now it's no longer there. अब वो क्या कर रहा है? Instead, the concept of stardom has changed completely on its head. The more visible and accessible you are, the bigger star you are today, right? So you have to be on social media, you have to be on all these events, you have to go to colleges, you have to give interviews. All of that happens. If I hire an HMU team to do my airport look, why would I not call the paparazzi to capture it? You know how much it costs, right? I'd better get something out of it, said a content creator on the condition of anonymity who has even signed up with an athleisure brand to cover their HMU costs in exchange for of modeling for their outfits at the airport. Wow, guess who this content creator is? Urfi, I don't know. Okay. While there's a whole parallel machinery in place for stars, big or small, on how they navigate escalating hair and makeup costs, several independent producers harbor grouses for how how the stars levy the same expectations on the production budget of a film set. Because these stars are now out there everywhere, they expect to look like that, with perennially blow dried hair and perfectly done eyes in all their films. Sure, you want to look like that, but why am I bearing a cost, right? Ask a producer who prefers not to be named. Moreover, since the stars are now so comfortable with their choice of hair and makeup team that they don't want to experiment or downsize to a far more reasonable to the far more reasonable professionals employed by the producer. The team we have on set would charge rupees 50,000 per day to do the hair and makeup of 3 actors. That's still okay. But how do they expect me to pay rupees 50,000 for just one actor every day, especially if it's an independent film low on funds? Where do I spend my funds? Do I spend my funds on set? Do I spend my film funds on script? Do I spend it on like kick-ass animation? Do I spend it on like creating elaborate sequences, artsy sequences? Do I spend it on other things? No, spend it on hair and makeup. Says producer Shiladitya Bora, who recently backed the Huma Qureshi starrer police procedural Bayan. ठीक है. Not just hair and makeup, stars demand fee for their drivers too. Another independent filmmaker claims he had to drop a star from his film after he charged over rupees 50,000 per day for his hair and makeup cost. The star was all gung-ho when I first narrated the film to him. He even considered it when I told him we have a limited budget, but then his manager just levied these additional entourage charges. Of course, the HMU costs were the highest, but why would I pay even your driver rupees 5,000 per day for driving you to and from set? It is atrocious. It is sort of atrocious. If the rules of economics are applied, the HMU costs should have plateaued by now, given there's so much demand out there. But it's not just the escalation in accessibility that's fueled the fire, but also the rise in insecurity among stars that comes with it. These HMU hair and makeup professionals have been working with those stars day in and day out for years. They have seen them at their most vulnerable and insecure. They also know how to hide the cracks, wipe out the marks, and cover the bald spots. Going to any other hairstylist or makeup artist would amount to starting from scratch. Okay, that I understand. Once you are comfortable with a professional, you're comfortable with a professional. Crores to remove wrinkles and eye bags. He adds that transferring these high hair and makeup and other entourage costs to the producer only makes the star even lazier. Right? He poses a pertinent question. Why don't you do your skincare routine religiously every day and take care of hair loss instead of relying completely on the HMU department? Where is the natural? What happened to the idea of self-care? In fact, it doesn't even stop at hair and makeup costs. Now VFX artists at leading post-production companies are being told to conceal wrinkles and even trim waistlines. Wow. That is where the effort is. The effort is less for younger stars like Alia Bhatt and Kriti Sanon and more for aging stars like Kajol, says a supervisor. As much as rupees 1 crore was spent to whitewash the eye bags of a newcomer who can't get enough of partying. 1 crore was spent to whitewash the eye bags of a newcomer. Of course, hairstylists and makeup artists would take advantage of stars' insecurities to charge a higher paycheck. No wonder the compensation has gone up by over 10 times in the last 15 years. But this practice is merely a symptom of the larger film ecosystem which revolves blindly and desperately around the star. Why don't we have filmmakers like Kamal Haasan and Mani Ratnam who can ask a Rani Mukherjee and a Manisha Koirala to wash the makeup off their faces because it doesn't go with their parts in Hey Ram and Bombay 1995 respectively? Why is there so much currency on how the star looks and not the character even today? I mean that speaks for like the shit that gets made today and that gets sanctioned today, and how the real stuff is coming out like from like every corner of India on social media, on YouTube, and other public platforms, on like small productions. There are like good work happening, opportunities there still. जहाँ पे कैपिटल है वहाँ पे नहीं भी सर मर के कर रहे हैं बच्चे. But hair and makeup artists insist their job isn't all about glamour, but also about world building. They are the stars behind the camera. They help you define characters, community, time frame, and era of a film, says hairstylist Raj Gupta, adding fantasy, sci-fi, and superhero genres rely on prosthetic and extensive wig work. They also ensure characters look consistent across shooting days, crucial for visual cohesion. They also work closely with costume designers, cinematographers, and directors to ensure the overall look aligns with the film's tone and lighting. Right. Rupees 55 lakh for correct shade of red in Katrina's hair. Fitur mein correct shade of red ke liye 55 lakh rupees were spent. Wow. But the production controller insists that while dedicating rupees 1.5 crore, 10% of the total budget for specialized hair and makeup prosthetic for Amitabh Bachchan's character in a film like R. Balki's Pa makes sense. That's not the intent with every film. Like, ठीक है, वहाँ पे he is going through progeria's syndrome or whatever he had in that film, but not everywhere. Burning rupees 55 lakh to land the exact shade of red in Katrina Kaif's hair in Fitur is such a waste. Yes, you remember that look till date, but that's because you don't remember the rest of the film. That was their only claim to fame. That's true. Unfortunately, that's true. I love Katrina, but that's true. However, popular hair and makeup artist Kanta Motwani points out how their work also saves a lot of production cost in the most invisible way. We contribute a lot more than what people realize it to be. Calling it a burden isn't fair. Good hair and makeup saves time and prevents retakes. Imagine if strands of hair keep coming in the way of tight close-up shots. She says, adding that even for films which may not seem to require hair and makeup, that's never the case. Even for a realistic or low budget film that aims for a no makeup look, still needs professionals to achieve that on camera. Lighting, lenses, and high definition formats pick up everything, so subtle makeup becomes essential. Do hair and makeup artists then paint every film with the same brush? Do they charge between 50,000 and 1 lakh even for smaller films? Do they increase their compensation along with the star? Seasoned hairstylist Alim Hakim believes that the pricing for services should be standardized. Charge the same fees to everybody, whether it's a superstar or a newcomer. When you buy an iPhone, the price would remain the same for both the rich and the poor. Why does Entourage double or triple their fees once their star delivers a 500 crore hit? As if they have delivered a 500 crore hit. As if they have delivered that 500 crore hit. A star can increase their prices, but the staff should get that 5-10% hike every year like it happens in the corporate sector, says Hakim. But professionals like Hakim and Gupta believe that despite the perception about increasing costs, the HMU department seldom gets its due. Internationally, there are categories in major award shows that honor the hair and makeup artists, but that's not the case in India, says Gupta. Hakim also chimes in. When the first poster of the film drops, you can only see the hair and face, but we haven't gotten enough recognition for that. I don't get it even till today, whether it's look for Vicky Kaushal in Chhava, Junior NTR in War 2, and Rajnikant in Coolie. That's true. A lot of people make up the Indian star, and like HMU artists are one part of that. Wow. So now that we are done with the second one, we learned a lot about the hair and makeup industry and how like the creme de la creme of the industry is charging like super high costs, and how like we compared that to like people who are receiving money for scripts and other parts of the film process. All right, we are 37 minutes in. There is one person who is watching the reel or who is watching the live. Thank you so much for watching. All right, let's do the last one. Okay, it's a 5-minute read. Let's just do it. Indian schools are embracing AI, but without guardrails, there is a hallucination crisis. So what happened? The exponential rise of generative AI, spearheaded by tools like ChatGPT and Gemini, has swept every corner of modern life, and nowhere is its disruption more profound and potentially perilous than in India's school education system. Government at every level is fast-paced to find a balanced path to use AI in education in India. Imagine if I was in school right now and AI had come. Like, I would go crazy. Earlier in October, a 7-member committee formed by the Gujarat government on AI held its first meeting with the director of Gujarat Council of Educational Research and Training to assess its paced-up plans to adopt AI in state schools. The efforts of government are not out of nowhere. This comes after the US-based ChatGPT, developed by OpenAI, announced the opening of its first office in India this year. Right. The company announced that they will expand their footprint with a clear objective, scope, and timeline, and have called it the India AI Mission, aiming to build an ecosystem for trusted and inclusive AI. Another US based company, Nvidia, a world leader in AI computing, announced a partnership with India's Reliance in 2023. Business giants like Google and Microsoft have invested heavily in its AI marketing in India. An AI hub in Vishakhapatnam is the latest in the series, while the Union Minister for Electronics and Information Technology has remarked that India is uniquely positioned to drive the next wave of AI led transformation. But are our schools and their teachers ready for it? What's up? What's going on in these schools? The enthusiasm for AI adoption among Indian educators is palpable and understandable. India is home to the world's largest digital user base for many AI platforms, and the tools promise an immediate, if illusory, solution to chronic teacher workload issues. All right. Highest number of WhatsApp users in the world? India. Maybe धीमे धीमे highest number of ChatGPT users in the world कौन हो जाएंगे? Indians. They are offering something for free also. They're partnering with different networks to do that. So, but what is happening? How is it happening? Surveys such as the one conducted by Center for Teacher Accreditation Center this year shows that over 70% of teachers across India are now using AI tools, with nearly 60% employing them specifically for lesson planning. एक लेसन को पढ़ाया कैसे जाए वो AI से पूछ लो. Pedagogy क्या होगी उसको AI से पूछ लो. For an overburdened teacher managing large class sizes, fair enough. Generating a standards aligned quiz or a detailed lesson summary in minutes is a powerful lure, allowing them to supposedly gain time for other work. While National Education Policy celebrates digital tools as a potential equalizer and a force multiplier for a nation grappling with the sheer scale of its educational demands from the Himalayan valleys to the shores of Kerala, the unchecked adoption of AI in classrooms has birthed a silent, insidious crisis, the AI hallucination. What is the AI hallucination? It's an insidious crisis, it's a harmful crisis. But what is happening? This phenomena where AI confidently presents utterly fabricated information as fact, उसको समझ में ही नहीं आता है, वो चार चीज़ों को लगा देता है और बोलता है ये fact है, is being silently introduced into millions of lesson plans, quizzes and study guides by an increasingly over-reliant teaching community. Teachers भी use कर रहे हैं, बच्चे भी use कर रहे हैं. टीचर असाइनमेंट जीपीटी से बना रहा है, बच्चा असाइनमेंट जीपीटी से कर रहा है, सब कुछ जो एवेल्यूएट जीपीटी से हो रहा है, मार्क्स भी जीपीटी से ही कैलकुलेट हो रहे होंगे. बातें कहाँ हुई, क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग कहाँ हुई, लर्निंग कहाँ हुई, एजुकेशन कहाँ हुई? क्या एजुकेशन को इसने हेल्प किया या एजुकेशन और क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग को इसने रिप्लेस किया? These are questions that I leave you with. Think about it. I don't think it's very good when it is just adapted blindly, right? But I also understand the perspective from the teachers, and the teachers in India have so much more to do. They are on voting duties. They have to maintain classrooms. The one teacher 32 students, one teacher 50 students, one teacher 60 students, one teacher taking classes. Like the teacher is overburdened, so naturally the teacher will take help of that, right? But then that damages the whole thing. This phenomena where AI, is utterly fabricated information as fact is being silently introduced into millions of all of these lesson plans, quizzes, and study guides by an increasingly over-reliant teaching community, creating a profound challenge to factual integrity and critical thinking that the current regulatory landscape is entirely unequipped to handle. The very foundation of what Indian students are taught is now at risk of being undermined by a ghost and a machine. Right? पढ़ क्या रहे हैं हम लोग? This wholesale outsourcing of content creation by teachers to AI has an immediate and catastrophic side effect. Since a Gen AI model is fundamentally a statistical engine that predicts the next plausible word rather than verifies objective truth, it frequently fabricates data, cites non-existent studies, or merges disparate facts into coherent sounding nonsense. The very definition of a hallucination. Like, it will say random absurd things with superb confidence. It will cite papers that don't exist. It will talk about places that don't exist. It will say things about people that never happened. It will give you a fact when you ask them for, if you ask them to draft a quiz, it will make you a question that does not have a real answer. So that is hallucination. When a teacher seeking efficiency copies an AI generated note on the Mughal Empire or a complex algebraic problem without rigorous verification, is that rigorous verification happening? Is the real question. Then confident falsehoods are immediately formalized as classroom truth, impressing permanently in the minds of the children and creating an educational time bomb. The real world impact of this teacher over reliance is subtle yet destructive, particularly in a system already battling foundational learning deficit. While direct headline grabbing court cases of AI induced factual errors in Indian schools are scarce due to the diffuse nature of the misuse, अभी तक नया हेडलाइन ग्रैबिंग केस नहीं आया है क्योंकि डिफ्यूज नेचर है, बहुत जगह पे प्राइवेटली स्कूल्स के अंदर हो रहा है. फिर भी कहीं ना कहीं रील्स कहीं ना कहीं तो आ ही जाती होंगी. आई एम श्योर इफ आई फाइंड लाइक सम रैंडम रील्स एज वेल वेयर लाइक students are uncovering how AI slop is being passed off for like factual stuff. The cognitive and academic evidence validates the systemic danger. Firstly, the core academic integrity is compromised. As research on the cognitive impact of Gen AI demonstrates, heavy student reliance on AI is correlated with lower brain connectivity, reduced executive function, and poor memory recall. When teachers too begin to rely on AI to generate their content, they tacitly endorse this cognitive outsourcing कि cognitively मैं दिमाग नहीं लगाऊंगा, I will not use my brain, I will just outsource my thinking to something else. And while that is great for small jobs, for like little jobs, but why to do that with studies, to do that with assignments, to do that with quizzes, to do that with lesson planning without extensive fact checking, without extensive quality checking, it is dangerous to say the least. There are no longer teachers, they are no longer teaching the critical skill of source verification, but instead they are presenting content whose origin is inherently opaque and unreliable. For a country aiming to foster a generation of innovators as envisioned by the NEP, this erosion of foundational reasoning is a severe handicap, especially considering that national assessments already show alarmingly low proficiency levels in core subjects like mathematics and social sciences. Alarmingly low proficiency levels in maths and social sciences, two of the most important fields, I think, right now in India. The content generated might sound eloquent, but it is often factually unsound, embedding errors that are difficult for both the teachers and the students to detect because of the AI's persuasive, confident voice. Moreover, the unchecked importance of AI-generated content into the curriculum introduces profound biases and cultural inaccuracies. Unchecked importation, of course. The large language models, the LLMs, teachers rely on are predominantly trained on vast data sets reflecting the values, histories, and dominant narratives of the global north. This AI system was not made in Karnataka. This AI system was not made in Gujarat. It was not made in Delhi. It was not made in Kerala. It was not made in UP. It was made in the global north. तो वहाँ के values, वहाँ की histories, वहाँ के dominant narratives, वहाँ के तौर तरीके पे ये train हुआ है, तो क्या उनको ऐसे ही blindly अपने पे लगाना सही है? हमारा original thinking, हमारा original thought कहाँ है? जो चाइना कर रहा है वो हम क्यों नहीं कर रहे? When these models are prompted to generate material for an Indian history class or a social science topic, they risk subtly or overtly embedding racial, cultural, or gender biases. A 2024 consultation in the New Delhi involving UNESCO and the Union government stressed that current AI models often reflect dominant worldviews which can contradict India's own commitment to diversity and inclusion. The teacher unaware of the subtle biases or the cultural irrelevance simply accepts the generated text, turning the classroom into an unwitting vector for the propagation of potentially skewed global perspectives that bypasses the oversight of national curriculum boards. The problem therefore shifts from simple inaccuracy to a crisis of educational sovereignty and cultural representation. This complex challenge is compounded by a deep policy vacuum in the Indian school ecosystem. The rapid development of AI has created a severe regulatory pacing problem. The technology is advancing far faster than the government's ability to legislate and establish control measures. While the NEP 2020 promotes digital learning and AI awareness, it lacks the fine-grained enforceable mandates required to address the specific peril of hallucinations and over-reliance. There are no mandatory national frameworks or institutional policies dictating the responsible use of Gen AI for content creation. How do you even formulate that? It's so difficult. The contrast is stark. A new textbook must pass through numerous rounds of expert and government scrutiny, but an AI-generated lesson plan, potentially riddled with errors, can be deployed instantly, lacking any formal checks or balances. This regulatory inertia leaves a critical accountability gap. If a student fails a public exam because the study material provided by the teacher was generated by a hallucinating AI, where does the fault lie? Is it the teacher, the school administration who allowed the tool, or the company that provided the flawed model? In the absence of clear policy, the burden of verification and the risk of failure are unfairly placed on the individual teacher and ultimately the student. That's true. The wow, how will this regulation happen? It's insane. You have to think about it. Like, how do you regulate it? How do you set systems for it? And how do you monitor all of this? The the urgency of this crisis demands a clear and multi-pronged national response, drawing lessons from global efforts to integrate AI responsibly. India must move beyond mere guidelines to implement enforceable policy pillars that prioritize human agency and factual integrity. Firstly, a nationwide commitment to mandatory AI vetting training for teachers is essential. This must be a structured professional development program, potentially resulting in a digital vetting certification, focusing specifically on the limitations of Gen AI, such as the mechanics of hallucination, error detection, and source triangulation techniques. ये सब सिखाओ टीचर्स को कि भाई hallucinate करता है, error detection, error कैसे detect करना है, source को triangulate कैसे करना है, how to make sure that whatever the information the AI is throwing at you is credible information, usable information. As numerous global policy bodies, including UNESCO, strongly recommended, teachers cannot be expected to maintain a technology they do not fully understand. The training should aim to make the teacher the human in the loop, not a mere copy paster. Wow, interesting. Human in the loop. Secondly, the adoption of a formal human vetting protocol is required for all AI generated content. Any material intended for direct student instruction, including lesson plans, test questions, summary notes, must be clearly labeled as AI assisted content. Human vetting होना चाहिए, ठीक है? कि कोई भी मटीरियल डायरेक्ट स्टूडेंट इंस्ट्रक्शन के लिए है और उसमें AI यूज़ हुआ है तो उसको लेबल करना होगा AI assisted content. This simple tagging mechanism introduces transparency and critically places legal and professional accountability back on the human educator. This mirrors the principle of the proposed European Union AI Act, which champions a human-centric approach to AI, insisting on oversight and traceability for high-impact applications. Moreover, the chain of thought prompting technique, where the AI is forced to explain its reasoning, should be taught as a standard verification process to expose logical flaws and factual errors before the content leaves the teacher's desk. Chain of thought prompting technique. We'll learn a little bit more about that. Chain of thought prompting technique. Thirdly, AI literacy must be immediately and systematically integrated into Indian school curriculum. Yes, sir. Students must be taught how AI works, why it hallucinates, and how to be critically skeptical of its output. This is about building a new form of digital and media literacy from the ground up, teaching students to spot deepfakes and fabricated citations. Right, this should be done. They should be done on a war footing and on all school, or in all schools, government schools, private schools, schools which has less fees, schools which have more fees to kariye. Global frameworks for AI in education, such as those recommended by the World Economic Forum, stress the need to equip students to be informed consumers, not just passive recipients of AI generated information. Dimag lagao. This proactive measure not only mitigates the risk of hallucination but also aligns perfectly with the NEP 2020's goal of fostering future ready critical thinkers. Finally, there must be strong policy guardrails for edtech procurement for Indian schools. Indian regulatory bodies such as Ministry of Education, CBSE and UGC must define AI tools used for direct content generation and assessment as high risk application. AI tools used for direct content generation and assessment as high risk applications. Yes. EdTech vendors supplying these tools to schools must be mandated to meet stringent transparent accuracy and bias mitigation standards with penalties for systemic failure. This is a crucial step towards implementing a responsible AI ecosystem, ensuring that the drive for efficiency does not override the fundamental right to accurate, unbiased education. Accurate, unbiased education. India's digital transition in education is at a critical inflection point. AI offers the potential to personalize learning and streamline administrative tasks. But its current unregulated integration into content creation by overworked teachers is creating a systemic risk of factual error and cognitive erosion through the phenomena of hallucination. The challenge is no longer whether to use AI, but how to govern it. No longer about whether to use AI, but how to govern it, how to regulate it, how to make sure that more and more people understand it, and people from all sections of the society understand it. By adopting swift, mandatory, and globally informed policies on teacher training, content verification, and student literacy, India can transform the ghost in the syllabus from a silent crisis into a tool for responsible, high quality education, safeguarding the future of millions of students against the perils of confident misinformation. The time for a robust, accountable, and human centric AI policy for school education in India is not in the future, it is now. Their author is a scholar with the Faculty of Social Sciences, Delhi University. All right, very, very important article, very, very interesting article. Absolutely enjoyed going through it. With this, we come to the end of 3 News today. It was slightly longer, but I hope you had fun. We read three very, very interesting articles. The first one we read was on how cars are just the bane of human existence in big cities. Second article we read about how HMU industry is becoming insane in the Hindi film industry right now, the HMU sector. And third, we read about the perils of unregulated AI use for content creation, lesson planning, assignment submission, and evaluation in Indian schools, and how 70% of them are now using it, but with what sort of accountability, with what is going on. So thank you so much for joining in. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye, take care. Thank you. Okay, let me just end this live now. How to end this live? Can you end it for me? Can you end the live for me? How to end it? You just press this cross button. ये वाला? हाँ? End.